Machines. Can't live with them, can't live without them, eh? I had this conversation last night with Itana. I'm really not cut out for certain aspects of my job. I think YouTube was simpler back in the day. I mean, clearly was, but things are a lot more cutthroat these days than they were in the past. And I think there was more room for decent people to actually get ahead. Because it seems like every day I'm finding out that people in the GTA community are just like the most selectively morally outraged people imaginable. Where like anything can be forgiven so long as you're receiving sufficient views, and anyone who is a competitor to you is morally condemnable on that basis alone, right? Is this content creator gaining or losing me views? Okay, I need to find some way to take them out. Oh, this person is giving me views. Look, it doesn't matter if they're like kicking puppies in their spare time. I gotta defend them to the death. And it's so gross. It's just gross. How do people do this kind of stuff? I don't get it.
I feel like content creation in general has brought out the worst in people as it becomes more part of the entertainment industry.
I'm not sure if that's the reason, but I think it does bring out the worst in people. I think it's just the competitiveness of it, right? A person who is generous when they have a lot is not necessarily gonna act that same way when they don't have much at all. The harder and harder it becomes for people to survive, the more likely they are to do things that they would otherwise not do, right?
As I've grown up, I've realized the more people do not care about morality as long as that person benefits them in a certain way. I have lost a lot of faith in people, but at times there are some good ones.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Worse is that like, it feels like there's nothing you can do about it. And as I found out over time, trying to do something about it just makes things worse for yourself, right? It's like the systems of society more and more work to silence anyone attempting to improve things. And they just lord up those who act poorly. And they reward people who keep silent. I guess it's always been the case, but just like growing up and realizing that it's just so disgusting. A lot of horrible things happen in history, not just because of horrible people, but also people not acting on that. Yeah, but at the end of the day, well, I understand your point, but at the end of the day, what I'm doing is making YouTube videos, right? It's not I don't think it's as big a moral imperative to combat this stuff in my space. Like, so sure, one more person who makes GTA content is a scumbag. Like, it's not gonna, there's nothing in the world. So in live chat, it sucks when you just don't know shit and it causes you to be inconvenienced. So here's my window, right? And then there's a door here that like slides along. This is to go outside, okay? And so I had some blinds installed and they look like this. I was like, this is blinds. Yeah, that's cool. And they're motorized as well. And every time since installing them, I've walked to this door, reached for the handle that's here, tried to get out, realized the blinds have impeded me, moved backwards, moved to have the blinds open, wait for the blinds to go all the way over here and all the way over here before I can go outside. And the blinds bundle, so they bundle like here. And so they bundle to block half the door. And I'm looking at this like, this is not how the blinds are meant to be. They're split in the middle. What the blinds are meant to be is just one connecting one. And so then you pull from this way and then they move this way. And as they're moving, you open the door and you leave. And so the place to move the blinds and the place to go the door in the exact same place. It only works better because the wind and potential rain and stuff isn't going to hit the blind that's sitting here, but you can just leave immediately. And 3 of my sliding doors are set up with the wrong blinds. This is like thousands of dollars to fix because you can't just like merge the 2 separate blinds. How is this possible? Yeah, I figured the guy who installed the blinds would know, and I gotta talk to him. Sad.
Any plans for different Red Dead Redemption 2 challenge runs?
No. I had on my list of stuff to do GTA 5 without committing any crimes. Like, it was a list, it was an idea, but I never did it because I didn't think I could do it well. I didn't even have any good way of executing that because, like, what do you count as a crime? But I think In Control did a video about that. I haven't seen it because I don't want to steal ideas and stuff, but yeah, he did one. And I know Any Austin also has made a video, which I also haven't watched, where he's where the title is what is actually a crime in GTA. So clearly there's an angle there that I didn't say, which other people have worked out. Red Dead Redemption 2 challenge runs, the game is too long, and I don't know enough about it. I don't think it'd be. I don't think I'd enjoy it as much. I don't think it'd be as successful. I think it would take too much time, kind of thing. Do you guys know who this is? He looks like the guy from Fallout. Apparently his name is Kaluch. Yeah, I think he's Polish or something. This is like 3 weeks ago, apparently, on this podcast. According to my viewer, he acts like I stole the idea of GTA 5 map challenges from this guy. Like, no idea who this guy is. He's like, man, DarkViperAU guy, stealing my ideas. If you guys want to know the inspiration for my crossing videos, it was my friend Sonny Evans. Well, got a very successful video October 8th, 2019. And he's done like a bunch of crossing videos since then. Well, we have collabed a few times over the years. I've met him personally, he's a nice dude. And there was a point in, what was it, 2022, 2023? I had all these ideas for challenges for GTA 5, which I had moved into. But some of them didn't seem very good for an entire playthrough of the game. So I was like, hey, fuck yeah, I'll just cross the map. I'm not sure to what degree Doug was in part the inspiration for that though, because when I first started doing challenges, I was locked into this idea that I had to complete the game. But Doug was doing challenges like, I'm gonna go up this mountain while balancing a pineapple on his head. That's not actual one, obviously. I'm just saying, like he would do interesting idea, but setting himself defined limits that didn't necessarily exist in the game. And I was like, I can do that too, you know? He and his friends only steals content, nothing more. Polish YouTuber named Bacchus explains it really well. When you go watch his video, there should be subtitles or AI voice. I'll be completely honest with you, man. When you go to his channel and you see this is like AI shit, you're like, oh yeah, this guy's probably not the best guy. But what can you do? Who is this Bacchus person though? See, like there's just this drum everywhere in this. Oh yeah. Oh, he doesn't like this man. I find it interesting because the internet is such a big place. But this is part of the reason why I watch so little GTA content. And for the longest time, I was like entirely ignorant as to other players in the space. Because I didn't want to steal people's ideas. I would argue though that crossing a map is I wouldn't say generic idea, but it's definitely one that predates YouTube gaming. Because it is like the defining attribute of the game that we play, going from A to B. And it is just the longest A to B. If they were still on the channel, my old Rambles, I probably would have unlisted them. I would have relisted them, like as member videos. But they're not. I took them down eons ago. I thought they had no value to me. And I had these weird people who had doxed me, who were looking through my shit. It didn't seem like it worth the risk. Like they were actively in real time finding any footage that they could clip together to make me say things that I didn't actually say. And make up shit about my life. And it just felt weird giving them extra footage for that purpose, considering like no one was watching the videos because they were unlisted. There's some really sick people on the internet chat. In the past when I had Rambles, well, I couldn't talk about everything. I basically would talk about whatever the hell I wanted. But now that I don't really have any commentary place, I don't really talk about anything. There's drama and stories about stuff and what's going on. I just keep it all to myself. Are you unable to run modded streams? Chaos after an update due to script hook not being updated? While Steam forces an update, I only have it update my clean version. So this is the latest update. That's why I'm in online. And I just don't have the other ones be updated. When a new script hook comes out, sometimes I update the Chaos version, sometimes I don't. If you guys want to learn how to switch between your versions of the game, if you go under any of my videos and scroll down, you can go into here and see GT5 Speedrun Discord. You can click into that. And you go down to resources and then easy change between different copies of the game. And this is one of my old videos that I had this guy upload unlisted. One of the most frequent people ask arrow on my G. And so this just explains that process. And it's just a button. I've explained this many, many times. Like many times over the years to the degree I don't explain it anymore. But this is what mine looks like. I can switch between these versions anytime I like. Apparently I was cloned on Bilibili. The channel seems to do like a bazillion different people's videos. It's not just me specifically. It just seems to be random videos.
GTA Online 更，大家好，欢迎收看本周的 GTA Online 更新和 Rockstar 新闻。相信我，这周有些大新闻你绝对不想错过。但我们先从 GTA Online 开始。令人兴奋的是，洗车房产对所有玩家完全免费。这当然与本周的丰厚奖励和每周挑战有关。对于每周挑战，你只需完成3个洗车房的合法工作，即可获得额外的10万美元。
It does kind of sound like me. The audio quality is garbage though. And if you speak Chinese and can tell if that's good, it only has like 50 views or something. So it's like, well. And it's probably just AI like copying endless videos. Can you explain the law of let's make like a tree and get out of here? It's a reference to Back to the Future. There's a dude in the movie called Biff, and he constantly says lines, expressions or whatever incorrectly. And one of them, he says, it's time to make like a tree and get out of here. And the old version of it says like, it's leave, you idiots, leave. It's like such a dumbass when you say anything correct. The situation with that woman who got shot was tragic. One thing that was interesting is I saw this video. A guy he brought up this study. It was a study that came out in 2014, and it's this idea that certain branches of law enforcement will intentionally step in front of cars to create justification to shoot people. Now, I can't tell you definitively what happened with this woman, but this paper came out 10 years ago, and nothing's changed. I think that's sick as fuck. They can create justification, and they do, but they don't make you put your foot on the throttle, you know, is a serious situation. A bunch of masked men were trying to pull her out of her car, and so she left. Have you seen that woman's glove box? It's full of, like, stuffed animals. And moments before leaving says, she's like, I don't hate you, or whatever, and just leaves. The dude shot her multiple times, including as she was going by. Yeah, I'm sorry, like, if masked men were trying to pull me out of my car, I also would try to leave. As would anyone on the planet. Like, we've seen the video, dude. Like, the dude just murdered her. And now hearing about this report where this is apparently just a thing that these officers do. Because what did he say? You fucking bitch or whatever. Because the report was like, yeah, so out of frustration, these officials will just step in front of cars and be like, you're running me over, and then shoot people. And this is like a known thing in America. I was like, what the fuck? And that was a decade ago. Nothing's, oh man, that's so fucked up, man. It's scary. I'm not even in the country. How's my fiance doing after last night's US co-op of her homeland? Okay, so it should be fairly obvious to anyone who's been paying attention to America for any point in time that Trump is the most obvious con man criminal of all time. He speaks like a con man. Everything he's done related to Venezuela, illegal as shit. Oh my God, international law, American law, so staggeringly illegal. You can't just walk into another country and be like, hey, your leader, yoink. Your oil is now ours. And even if they wanted to do that, Congress would have to do that, not Trump, because he feels like it one day. But to be clear, obviously, it's not just Trump. It's a whole group of people surrounding him and a whole little enterprise thing, you know, Project 2025 and all that jazz. This is all set up for before he got elected. Like Trump, you know, they're doing all those cognitive tests on him repeatedly because he's obviously, his brain's going, he's got all those marks on his hands and stuff. The man can barely even feed himself. But with all that being said, chat, putting out those credentials as to I don't like Trump, what's going on in Venezuela right now could actually be good. And not even in that, well, we just gotta be optimistic, guys. Like, Maduro, like, really sucked. Really, 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 really sucked. Maduro had no checks on his power. And he didn't care about the country or his prestige or anything like that. He didn't fucking care about anyone. And so the lives for the Venezuelan people were pretty shit. Venezuela, once upon a time, in, you know, like 70s, 80s, that kind of period, it was like the golden jewel of South America. Everyone thought it was just the good days were gonna last forever, but everything since then has kind of gone to shit. And like when we talk about going back to Venezuela, it's like, it's not like, let's go for a little trip to one of the safer areas. It's like, are there any safe areas left? Getting medical supplies or anything like that, you gotta like pay smugglers and stuff. Like Venezuela, just getting in and out of the country is like you're rolling the dice kind of thing. Venezuela was in a really, and still is, I suppose, in a really, really, really bad situation. And it didn't seem like there was any real avenue where anything was ever going to improve. Because Maduro just had absolute unchecked power and there was no one to stand up to him. He had already legitimately lost multiple elections, but was just declaring himself the victor regardless. It's why you probably have seen Venezuelan people dancing in the street, right? As awful as everything was, innocent people died. It's just innocent people were already dying en masse, continuously, in a large part due to how unstable the country was and the lack of access to even basic resources in a lot of cases. Like stuff that I would just chuck in the bin. Aitana's mother will be like putting in like care packages to send back home kind of stuff, right? While Trump is obviously does not give two shits about the Venezuelan people, obviously. He stood up and said, hey, we gotta get ourselves some free oil, bruh. All the people who have paid to get me elected are gonna get themselves some free oil. Let's go. It's undeniable that Venezuela has a better shot of improving its circumstances under Trump and more than likely, assuming the elections actually allowed to go on, a change in Congress in 2026, than they did Maduro just having his heart grow a few sizes bigger in the future. You can certainly talk about how bad America was at regime change in the Middle East, but you've got to remember that the Middle East, fundamentally, very different culture and like much further away from America compared to Venezuela, which is just on its backdoor. And the Venezuelan people are a lot, well, obviously not the exact same as American people, but they obviously share a lot more of a culture. There are a lot more Venezuelans or South Americans in general in America. Like there are people in the Trump administration who are from Venezuela. So this has a much better shot at something positive coming from it. And people, like that statement I made before, like, oh, Trump is just there to steal the oil. It's like, yeah, that's what Maduro was doing. It's not as though the Venezuelan people had the oil and were benefiting from the oil, and now Trump is going to come in and steal the oil from the Venezuelan people because they weren't getting the oil to begin with. In the golden era of Venezuela, yeah, the people were benefiting from the oil production and stuff, but that hasn't been the case for ages. It's just all been going into the pockets of Maduro and his lackeys. I think the most the best potential outcome is that America will actually put some money into Venezuela, making it a better country or whatever, like improving its infrastructure, building it back up to where it was decades ago. And then there's actual elections, right? Do I think Trump will do that? Nah. The worst thing about this whole thing, well, I guess just how many laws this brings. Where Trump is just like, hey, your leader? Yeah, we don't like him. Take. Do you know how much oil Venezuela has, by the way? The exact number, no, but it has the most proven oil reserves of any country in the world. So that footage was recorded 6 months ago, and I've learned since then that might not actually be true. That is something commonly said and commonly believed, but those really in the know question the source of those numbers, which it was largely Maduro being like, guys, somehow, like the amount of oil we have has doubled. It could be legit, but the sources of that information is a bit questionable, and people just don't dig in and question it because it's often just the people saying it benefit from it being true and people widely believing it's true. So it could be true, but it's also possible that it's false. Bottom line though, they do have quite a bit of oil. And some people say, why would America even want Venezuela's oil considering it's so heavy and hard to process and stuff? But it's important to remember that the refineries in America have been designed to get the oil from, south of it. Those refineries are specifically designed to refine that kind of oil. And Venezuela, the reason why it can't, in a large part, utilize all its natural resources is because it doesn't have these refineries. It doesn't have the tools and the machines and the know-how. Imagine Denmark just spontaneously invading New York. Like, what the fuck? Yes, it is a very bad understand. So for Venezuelan people, things were as bad as they could possibly conceivably be. Okay? Any change is better. Like, I wouldn't care if fucking Kim Jong-un had, taken out Maduro or whatever. Just the idea of change happening could lead to being above the floor, or they would just be back at the floor again. The circumstances around Trump taking out Maduro, taking control of the country, is in such a way that it's almost inconceivable that this isn't going to be a better circumstance for the Venezuelan people. An amazing circumstance? I'm not claiming that, but it will, you've gone from 0 to potentially higher than that, right? For the rest of the world, bad. If Trump is allowed to get away with just defying Congress, continuing to take upon these powers that he does not have as president, and doing whatever the fuck he wants without any kind of oversight, that's bad. My dad is particularly happy about this happening as he is from Venezuela and he had to flee because of Chavez, which had his pilot career taken away. It sucks that Trump can do what he wants. So exactly, that is the greatest summary ever, Glow. Things were really shit in Venezuela, but everything Trump is doing is illegal and terrible for the world. But it could be good for Venezuelans. As I say, I just think there's reasons to be a little bit optimistic for Venezuela. For the rest of the world, I mean, again, bad, but still. Did you guys see this video by the Plain Bagel? He's a finance YouTuber. I heard a lot of what he said in the video already, talking about how, the prospect of getting Venezuela's oil is, very low. I'd already picked up on this elsewhere over the years, but not to this degree. It was in the back of my mind, because obviously around the world, right, there's heaps of oil that people have access to. I mean, companies and stuff have access to. Each country wants to exploit their own natural resources for their own benefit. But it's not like oil companies were in a situation where they desperately needed additional sources of oil. And given how dilapidated Venezuela's infrastructure was, there was no way in hell that, tomorrow they're gonna turn on the pumps. And all the talent had fled elsewhere, and partly to Canada or whatever, since 2003. There's no one in the country to do it. People are paid $1 gazillion, foreigners and stuff to run it. And you're looking at the situation in Venezuela where there's no troops on the ground and stuff maintaining the country. All of Maduro's lackeys are still in power. Country is still hella unstable, repressive. What company is going to be yo, let's just shove $100 billion in there into oil infrastructure. Why would anyone do that? I mean, the only thing they'd be doing is undercutting their own other oil productions. Like, I had never heard numbers before, but apparently analysts say that you need a price of like $80 a barrel for it to make sense to go into Venezuela to get its oil. Like building infrastructure and stuff, and it would take like a decade. And the price of oil isn't at $80 a barrel, it's nowhere close to that. US oil companies said it's currently uninvestable. Yeah. I don't usually talk about current events to this degree, but it's just, you know, because I want to see Venezuela become a powerhouse again in the world. To be like it was in, well, the up and coming country or whatever from the 70s, 80s and stuff. Because Aitana has a lot of memories there, and not all of them good, I understand. She remembers being involved in protests and waiting in lines for food, and, you know. She says that she wishes her dad was around to see Maduro get taken down because of, you know, horrible things he did. Well, America didn't get him for the horrible things he did, but I mean, you know, that's why people were dancing in the street, because he's done a lot of horrible things to a lot of people.
Hopefully you two can visit someday.
Yeah, it'd be nice to visit. But maybe we still could visit technically, but it's just, well, maybe not right now, but like I'd like the country to be stable and safe, you know. The main issue is not the infrastructure, but the laws and situation of the country as an overall. There is light oil reserve that can easily start making money with a minor investment. But why? Why would oil companies want to do that? Additional production would do nothing more than undercut the other production they have in the world. They could already, if they wanted to, produce more oil.
You can disagree with Maduro and think he's a horrible person, but still agree that the United States are out of line with what they've done.
Oh, of course we'll agree. Yeah, it's unquestionable that the US is out of line for what they've done. What can you do? Why are we talking about politics? You started me. I know. I just care about the situation in Venezuela. So I said all that 6 months ago, and while Venezuela has been changing some of its policies to make it more favorable to foreign investment, especially in the oil industry, it probably wouldn't be enough under normal circumstances. But because of everything that happened with Iran and how much of a shitfest that was, it's now, you know, conceivably possible that they might invest at least a bit in Venezuela, while before that was effectively never going to happen. Basically, everything that happened with the Strait of Hormuz being closed off showed that having sources of your oil being diversified all around the world is ultimately in your best interest. You don't want to overly invest in one particular location, because then, you know, something like that can happen, especially in an area that's potentially unstable like the Middle East. Who knows how much this is going to happen, but I think, you know, there's a much better chance now after the war in Iran than there was before. That's kind of funny, really. How things change.